stop me if you heard this one before, but happy wife, happy life is the message that has been sold to us being those unmarried gentlemen out in the universe, in the big pond. However, they also say, till death do us part. So when one Jason Segel, i.e., the guy from How I Met Your Mother, the tall guy, and teams up with apparently the band called the Looney Island, which, for those of us uninitiated, back in the 2010s, there was this band comprised of, I forget who it was, maybe Seth Meyers, but like essentially like two dudes and three, I don't know, three. There's a group out there that really decided to make some interesting songs that had interesting topics, that had interesting impact on the culture. And some of them were bangers. You might know I Threw That Shit on the Ground. That's one of my personal favorites. No promotion. But Like a Boss, stuff like that. But we've seen them actually try to do the movie style of things before. I believe one of their first movies was Superstar, Popstar, something like that. And something like MacGyver, something like that. But we've seen them try to do a movie before, right? What started off as a group of funny characters from SNL, I believe they came from Saturday Night Live, and they decided to make funny skit music videos, which then became into interesting songs, which then becomes something like this, a movie. So you pair that up with one Jason Segel, a dude that I generally remember from the good days of my youth, and you put him in this interesting scenario where you got a man and a wife and a woman, husband and wife, and things haven't been going well in their relationship. It happens. And they both decide that, hey, why don't we have a weekend getaway at the good old cabin, Grandpa's cabin, or Pop's cabin. And so begins the next exciting weekend of their lives. Right off the bat, this is funny. This is stupid funny. And again, this is coming from the people who made a shark sing like a boss, and that got a smile out of me. So take that with a grain of salt. Whatever comedy you're kind of expecting to find, I couldn't help it. There's some lines in this film that just hit really solidly. Like one of them is a response to a question, and they go ceviche, and I'm like the only guy in the theater that goes like, ha, because ceviche is a very Mexican dish. So like, you just got to give them some credit right there, because the amount of reach that the comedy has in this film, and it could be like an edgy, it can be like a dark humor, it can be like a random ass insertion, but these guys have the comedy down. At least the writers do. I'll give them credit with that one. Jason Segel, for all his acting chops and all his history and all his skills, he does bring enough to the table. I do think Jason Segel is a decent / good actor. I just don't feel like something in this had him at an 8, when I know he can do level 10 work easily. That being said, being put into that position and that role that he has, he plays it well, right? And where would he be without his counterpart that, believe it or not, in the amidst all the excitement, we're giving really early scenes, and it's in the title of the film. But apparently, their marriage is not working out, so much to an extent that both parties have decided to kill each other over this weekend. So you have right off the bat, you have a really interesting plot that really ramps up, and it leaves things in the really funky place. Again, these are sort of scenarios that, like, you know, on paper should make you really concerned. But when we're sitting in a movie theater, and again, we have the Looney Island directing something, let's call it personal, then yeah, okay, we let our imaginations slide a little bit. And where they take it, the jokes they make, kind of the places they hit, and the honesty that comes from, well, from certain other characters is interesting to say the least. This is, simply put, to me, if we've been having a renaissance in horror films from stuff like Blumhouse and other projects in that vein, and that uptake of horror filming, I honestly believe we've been like in a big boom of horror films, and that is not that to me is a direct consequence of Jordan Peele's amazing work in his trilogy run of horror slash mystery, which inspired people to do stuff. And now we're getting to a point, I personally believe, that certain people, i.e. the Lonely Island and Liam Neeson over with The Naked Gun, are leaning, and with Jackass with their final film coming out very soon, are leaning back into the comedic aspect of things. I believe it was Liam Neeson that said that there aren't many comedies sold in theaters anymore, and I can vouch for that. I've seen a lot of films in the past couple of years, but I honestly can't recall on one hand which ones were supposed to be comedies outside of the children's films or whatever animated films you want to throw out there. So to see a certain group kind of pop in and be like, listen, Hollywood is not making it happen, so we're gonna do it ourselves, is not unlike one Markiplier directing Iron Lung, and one, what's his name, Chris whatever's, sorry sir, directing the Sandy Oaks movie, which is another YouTuber, Chris Corwell, directing another horror film, which again is almost like a new wave, maybe a fresh breath of fresh air. And obviously, if just like Markiplier has said, that certain Hollywood brackets don't want to pay attention to this certain almost like indie artist vibe happening, and that's to their detriment. But thankfully, people like this, people who are not afraid to step a bit beyond the boundaries of what we would accept normally, but we can accept it because it's being presented with actual craftsmanship and not just slop being slapped on a piece of paper and being presented to us as a receipt. So there's a big difference when it comes to creative passion and when it comes to people just trying to make investment deals out of a product. So if that's any takeaway, it's a rated R film, like just straight up. You do not want to take anybody who is not going to be able to take, you know, jokes like as an adult or whatever, I guess. And nor should you really force that upon anyone in that direction. But it has its moments. I'm trying to wonder if they ever sell like the relationship, and maybe that's to the point of the film. The whole point of the film is that things have gone so bad that between them that it has led a certain party to create a certain action, which is now leading to a certain party to react to that certain action, and now we're here. So maybe the disconnect between the relationship of them is part of that. I'm probably giving them way too much credit at this part, but it's still nice to think that they had that planned out. That being said, again, I feel like that kind of comes off as a Jason Segel role, but again, I believe chronologically the husband is like 10 years plus older than his wife, because they make a point out of that later on. Be like, I married a baby. Okay, fair enough. And yeah, that's your presentation. It's one loony island being crazy, having fun. I won't spoil it too much. You can obviously see that there's more than 2 people in this cast. Things happen, but it's honestly a really solid, good, like, reveal when it all comes crashing down. You'll get it if you get it. And if you do, which I hope you do, take the time to go watch Over Your Dead Body. Yeah, that's right. So hey, but speaking of passion, did someone say Baby Michael? Someone said Baby Michael. Oh. I put a mouse pad on this side now, so it's like works perfectly. Sheesh. Give it to him, Baby Michael. Michael. There are some things in life that are inevitable. Life, death, taxes, and a Michael Jackson biopic. Yeah, man. Realistically, we don't know why it hasn't happened before. Logistically or legalistically, perhaps we'll get into that later. Perhaps there was a reason they weren't able to mass produce this Hollywood budget production of one Michael Jackson. Now, a lot of people have said a lot of things, and then I believe a lot of critics are being called out for opinionating certain things, which then leads us down a rabbit hole of who is making certain people say certain things, and why are they making them say these things, even though the whole universe goes down to the movie theaters and then goes like, yo man, this is a really cool Michael film. And it becomes this big ball of sensation that people are like, why the hell do we even listen to these critics if they're clearly out of touch or being bought out or being told what to say? Blah, 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 blah. Let's put all that aside for right now. Legally, there was supposed to be a ending with all the futuristic allegations and stuff that happened. They finished that film. Legally, the dude who made the allegations busted out his Yu-Gi-Oh trap card or Uno reverse card and said, nah, I have an NDA that says that you can't mass produce this story. So then they had to go back to the drawing board. They had to write a new ending, and they had to refilm certain parts to make it all more chronologically kind of make sense. That is the legality of things. How much of it is true and how much are people like are hushing up, it's a different story. It's up to your interpretation. However, that being said, what the directors / creators pivoted into became the story of Michael Jackson, young Michael, in Jackson 5, having to deal with let's call it a helicopter parent of Joe Jackson and his siblings, and how that affected his adult / thriller years. And you'd assume that with a person as notorious as Michael and with a repertoire of albums or as songs as good as Michael, that there would be a lot of history in between that time frame and a lot to talk about. So in a way, it's almost works out for the better. We'll get to that later. That being said, the fact that certain critics or certain people who are paid to do this, or people that were flown out for free to do this or whatever, are complaining that this didn't happen, that's why I didn't enjoy this this film is a bold statement. If that doesn't make sense, the fact that people who are paid, you know, invited to watch these things for free, paid to give an honest opinion, are criticizing things because it's not what they want, rather than actually looking at the material and trying to feel something. That's crazy. That's crazy, y'all. And so, like, that's where I'll leave that one there. As far as what people are saying about the story of the guy, it's an interesting and disappointing, I guess, situation out there. However, you look at the fans, you look at the audience, you look at the everyday schmo, and they're out there, and they're eating this up, and they are enjoying this film. And guess what? I'm just another guy who likes to have a good time. So, essentially, while you're being taken through the greatest hits of Michael Jackson's early career, leading up to the Thriller album, which apparently is like his last album, you're invited to very nice, bombastic, like, productions of those music videos while you're being introduced to the early developmental years of Michael Jackson, while you touch into his teenager years, which kind of showcases what the results of all that early work came to be, but how it also left them in this island of they call it like the self-made man, right? But you're so good at your job that nobody can actually relate to how good you are. So it's like it's like being seen without being understood. And the film shows how he's kind of had to live with that, while also kind of being abused by mentally and maybe physically, probably physically sometimes, by his father, in terms of having this mentality of it's never enough. And if you watch any of his older interviews, or like people that just talk about Michael, one of the things that they say, or that I've hear all the time, is that Michael had this work ethic like no other person. He pushed himself to the limits. If you're thinking like LeBron James or Michael Jordan, I've seen I don't know why I've seen them, but I've seen pictures of LeBron James' toes when they're all smashed up, because that's how hard he trains, apparently, that he fucks up his toes, like his feet are all fucked up from doing side steps and all that shit. Michael Jackson was that of pop. And, you know, people say the same thing about Elvis, but obviously to leave your name and to make a name out of yourself and to continue carrying that forward is no easy feat. And the amount of dedication and pride, to an extent, that has to come from that is very astronomical. They say shoot for the stars, and shoot for the moon, and you'll land among the stars. But you know, just it's something different when someone just completely believes in that, or has the liquidation to actually invest in that, or has a reason to push forward. And at the end of the day, I believe that's something that the film did well. The fact that, you know, being 1996, the fact that all this shit happened before my time, and I was never able to experience it in the moment. I only experienced the after stories of the good times. And even while I was listening to the Thriller album in my iPod Nano, I didn't understand the gravity of what that man had done. If you really look at the timeline And if you look at the political climate, and if you even look at what had to be done for him to finally get his videos on MTV, it paints a clearer picture, at least in my mind, a human who has finally done the work and reviewed at least a couple of years back in our time, all the way back to Gilgamesh. It reveals a lot of situations that line up to why it was such a big moment and why more people than ever were able to hear his message. And again, the film does, I think, a great job of presenting that mission and how Michael carried that in his life. And again, I will never stop appreciating when they make certain biopics like these about artists, about creatives, about bands that I enjoy, because it shows and it gives you an image of their mindset and who they were and what they were going through at that time period. And to me, for me, someone who is just obsessive over like understanding and like knowledge, it's invaluable knowledge to be able to watch a representation of this man who literally changed the world and what that did to him or how he felt among that process. That right there is what I believe makes these films really worth their shine. Yes, it's great that the thriller moment is pretty hype, and it's cool that we have to hear Beat It and Bad, and like it's a moment when this music pops, but without the heart, without portraying the love that Michael had for the music, for the people, I don't think this film would be doing as well. Because hell, it's Michael. You can say a lot of things about Michael, but that guy knew how to love. And again, the people who are salty about certain parts in his life that weren't represented or covered or portrayed, or you know, someone didn't spend money on this moment. Why are you so salty about that? And realistically speaking, we're gonna get it. Now, this film does something interesting. It sort of builds you up to a certain point, and if you're paying attention, that's the whole point of the movie. It builds you up to a certain point. But unfortunately, the movie ends right at that point. So it feels like a climactic ending that stops right before the drop. This film is making bank. People, CEOs at Universals are already tripping over themselves trying to get that sequel greenlit. There will be a sequel film to this, and it's gonna be called Jackson. I'm calling it right now. It's gonna be called Jackson, and it's gonna touch on those allegations. Now, I said maybe that NDA was a blessing in disguise because it was able to do something to the directors. They were able to cut that part out and forcibly have to rearrange the first film to make it mean something. And that film, that first meaning of that film, means a lot to the passion and to the creativity that this person was. Now, if in this subsequent film we get the aftermath of those things and those allegations, then that's gonna be something that Number one, there's a lot more information that just came out recently with the Island Man's papers and DRAM's papers, files. So, number one, that gives them a lot more information to work with. Number two, that gives them time to rewrite names and replace scenarios so they don't get copyrighted or NDA'd, and non-disclosure agreement, yeah, NDA'd. And number three, it allows for the studio, Universal's, to separate the good with the bad. Now, normally that's not a great thing. Maybe you're pandering to the positive a bit too much. But again, I believe that this is a blessing in disguise because it helps present the man in the two ways that I knew him. The man who created the music, and after I was born, after Scary Movie 3 made all the jokes about, the nose and everything, how I came to understand him through the culture, which is the person with the tainted past, the person who had to live their life with those allegations. That's the Michael that I that I ended up growing up with, because that is what the culture presented to me. So the fact that you can present this movie, showcase just how much of spirit that guy had, and then start talking about the serious things. Hey man, I don't know if Universal has the balls to do it, but I sure as hell hope they can find them. Cause yeah, if they get certain data or information that was recently announced or discovered through those files, this whole scenario can be flipped on its head. And again, like I said that yesterday in yesterday's News of the Week, go watch that with us if you have a good time, check it out. But yesterday I mentioned that certain information might have explained why he was there and what his specific role, unbeknownst to everybody in that room, what his real personal role as someone who understood what it was like to be abused and taken advantage of, what his secret role in that room full of disgusting people could have been. I've mentioned it before, and I don't love to say it, but sometimes the best way to destroy something is to destroy it from the inside. And in my heart of hearts, and like as a judge of character of someone that I don't know, that I've never met, but I've experienced his soul through his songs, I believe it. I believe there's a bigger story to tell that has not been told, and if Universal has the balls to jump into that and actually complete his story, finalize what actually happened and the people who actually pointed fingers, then maybe it is a new age for Hollywood. But hey, getting all stoic on this again. Moving on. Something with less words, more punches. Normal. In a little town called Normal. Because Normal is a action film starring one Saul Goodman. That's right, baby. No, Bob Odenkirk. Got it right. It's Odin and Kirk. Yeah. Bob Odenkirk is nice. Is back in action. Better Call Saul. And let me tell you, this man has done everything in his power to not continue being Better Call Saul. But damn it, he is so iconic and he looks damn good in a suit that is going to be hard to get that out of your mind. However, in this new rendition, our boy is rocking the sheriff's outfit, which is very nice. It looks good on him. However, the caveat in this film is that he is only a substitute sheriff, meaning that, yeah, he's there, he's a sheriff, but he'll be gone within a month, which immediately should make your writer's senses tingle as we lean into the Lone Rider cowboy stereotype. Yeah, baby, we love it. This film is cute. Like, more than anything, this film is cute because you start off with Bob Odenkirk doing voicemails, right? But it's presented in a way, he's voicemails to his wife, but who's not talking to him, don't worry about it. Who's presented in a way that it is like a narrative moment. So you have scenes in this film where it's like landscapes, the town, people doing their lives, but it's Bob Odenkirk narrating the moment. And again, the fact that that's coming back around, or almost it gives it like this detective noir vibe going on. Come on, man. You know me. I love a good monologue. So to have Bob Odenkirk become like this gruffed out like detective vibe / sheriff who is now helping in this little town called Normal, which obviously has more hiding, which is more to it. What's it called? More than meets the eye. God damn it, Transformers. Which a little town called Normal, which is more than meets the eye. And did we mention this is an action flick? Someone mentioned Keanu Reeves. And then someone mentioned who would win? Bob Odenkirk or Keanu Reeves? Now that's that's a cute question, because the way I see it right now, Keanu Reeves put in time, busted his ass, learned a little something, taught himself a little, created a little something called gun fu, okay? And Bob Odenkirk has been right behind him. I'm not gonna say he's like super cool Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves obviously has more of that Matrix Kung Fu vibe. But watching this guy freaking move in the squad and do his little detective / the literal John Wick thing of, oh hey, everything is a weapon, is, number one, it's one of my favorite things because it reminds me of Jackie Chan and how Jackie Chan's shtick is everything is a weapon, although comedy. Here they ramp up the aggressiveness and you have John Wick level executions, which again, I'm not here for all that splish splash, I was taking a bath type of scenarios. But when you have Better Call Saul with a damn good purpose behind it, whew, somebody's been cooking. Now, obviously, you know that this is the guy who helped create John Wick, who helped also do the previous 2 movies, Normal, which is where this kind of love romantic relationship between director and Bob Odenkirk began. It's cool. I kind of see it the same way that Tarantino keeps on calling Samuel L. Jackson for roles in his movies. And they've developed this good, This good flow. Yeah. So now it really feels like the director knows exactly what Bob can do. And in writing these scenes and writing these characters, he's able to really bring out that humanity and that action vibe from Bob. So that's a lot. I don't know if I'm explaining this well enough, but the fact that there is a director out there that knows exactly what Bob can do and is damn good at writing scenarios for Bob, and that Bob can actually act out with damn good precision, is really impressive. I don't know if I'm making that clear. This man, this man is very, very impressive. And that's setting aside the fact that there's serious, intense action scenes that keep you on your toes. You know, I always like to mention that, like, you got to pick up on those movesets, man. Jackie Chan. So, where are we in the year of our Lord 2026? Bob Odenkirk is, to me, the Chuck Norris to Keanu Reeves's Bruce Lee. At least I think that's what they thought. Or was it Jackie Chan and Chuck Norris in what was it? It's not Enter the Dragon, is it? Anyways, yeah, something about the tiger. The tiger one. The tiger one. Crunchy Tiger Hidden Dragon. Okay. Yeah. So, anyways, yeah. If I think it's gonna happen. I think it's gonna happen. I think it's gonna happen. Give it 5 years. They'll finish John Wick Part 5 or whatever bullshit they're doing over at Lionsgate. And the director of this, because again, he started the John Wick series. He was a co-writer, I believe, with John Wick series. He'll hit up Keanu Reeves and he'll hit up Bob Odenkirk. And all you will hear on the other side of the line, yeah. It's like, Keanu. Keanu, you want to get down with Odenkirk? Yeah. I'm thinking I'm back. Anyways, so that's what I'm looking forward to. That's my future estimate of future forecast of kung fu action, kung fu, very coolness. I believe in it, and I'm looking forward to that future. But yes, really good film, solid acting. There's characters in this film that actually bring a lot to the table, and that's probably one of the best examples of how they bring out that humanity in Bob. Because him interacting with all the neighbors and all the villagers or whatever shows how he carries himself. And to see a cop, you know, like, supposed to give you a ticket but just gives you warning is already like a sign of someone who's like chicka chicka. And that's impressive to see coming from a guy with a badge. Obviously, a lot of people have a lot of opinions of a lot of different people who wear a lot of different uniforms. But to be able to look at a decorated officer or a dressed law enforcement individual and be able to believe that he is there to support your back, like he's got your back, like he is the law who is there to protect and serve. God damn, I can only imagine what that feels like. But it brings a whole new take to the cop, sheriff, law enforcement scenario or trait or personality trait, right? I mentioned earlier that this is essentially a cowboy enters the town scenario, because this is a guy who is arriving into a town for 2 weeks or whatever his probation period is, and that actually stems from samurai films, samurai and Ronin, samurai. Cowboys got it from the samurai. Sorry, George Lucas got it from samurai and cowboys. Cowboys got it from samurai. That's how it worked. And now Bob Odenkirk, wouldn't you know it, has to face Yakuza. But hey, we'll get there eventually. That being said, great choreography, very, very good choreography. It's the guy who started John Wick. One of the guys that started John Wick directing this. And you got two people who really respect and understand each other, and goddamn, does Bob Odenkirk just know how to act. It's good, man. It's really good. You stack him in a village full of people that are essentially Animal Crossing characters, and you give them like actual weight, like human presence per character, and then you have the sheriff have to reflect on what certain actions mean to certain people, as he's gonna have to start mowing down other people. So TLDR, be a good guy. Speak softly, carry a big stick. It's my favorite president, by the way. So, in case you didn't know, the moose represents protection and like home protection, whatever. Nature, home protection. The deer king. There you go. That's what it's called. So, I know I'm a little late to the party with this guy. It honestly took me a cool second to organize stuff, but definitely if you have a chance to go check it out, please go check it out. I know this guy and the director are rough and tough. Like they're fairly indie, if that's how I'm gonna call it. But you know, I feel like films like this do deserve to have attention because it's really a good story. Like it's a good story. Again, we have a man who has every right to become an asshole, to be like, who has a dark past, who any other person could have used those traumatic experiences to become this ultimate asshole that's like rough and gruff sheriff guy. But you see him go through his patrol, you see him interact with people, and you see him try to find the good in people because he knows just how bad things can get. And honestly, going off on a cool limb right here, the fact that we can't even respect that, or that it's harder and harder to be able to appreciate that type of character in a man, at least, is depressing, you know? And I believe that's what really took me a while to kind of get this all together, is the fact that Pragmata, the new Capcom game, has released into the wild, and one of the immediate responses we get is, ew, guys are trying to play dad simulator games now. To which, what is your primary objective, woman, person, place, thing? So it comes at an interesting time where I really do believe that the image of man has been tainted, toxified. We talk about toxic masculinity like it's a fucking Wednesday, but we never talk about a toxic femininity because certain people get sensitive about it, right? So it's really depressing / disappointing that you could create something that literally inspires life to continue, and the other half of the equation can turn around and be like, ew, what are you doing? And it's like, wow, y'all need to reprogram yourselves, because something ain't right in that operating system. So, all that being said, perfect example of what protective male energy is all about, in my humblest opinion. You got a guy with a gun, but that don't mean you're gonna die yet. Yeah. So, with all that being said, quiet, peaceful, predictable, normal, baby. And go support Mr. Odenkirk. He's a pretty cool guy. I've seen a couple of his interviews, and I keep on appreciating this man for the effort that he puts into it. And again, he is like the Chuck Norris of my time to the Jet Li or Jackie Chan of Keanu Reeves. So it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. You're gonna have a Batman v Superman movie between Keanu Reeves and whatever character he wants to be. And it's gonna be so awesome, man. It's gonna be so cool. So, if you're interested in that, if that sounds awesome, and you really like Kung Fu, whoa, then hey, hit that like, subscribe, and I'll catch you on the 420 for Rizzle. But until then, thanks for watching. It's been your boy, EXP66, signing off. Ciao. Matane. I left the mouse behind me.